The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi folks, today on Aging Horizons we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's and effective communication strategies through the different stages of dementia and Alzheimer's. We have a great guest from the Alzheimer's Association of Montana with us today, and we're going to learn a lot and hopefully help you know what to expect if you're going through any of this with a friend or a family member. Stay with us.
With as many as 1 in 10 Americans at risk for Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia, chances are someone you know and love will receive that diagnosis. When that happens, you may well feel devastated, but know that you are not alone. Help is available. You don't have to face dementia by yourself. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
It's been 27 years. I never thought I'd still be smoking, but here I am, COPD and all. I'm about to have a granddaughter. There's so much to show her, but I'm scared I won't be able to keep up like I used to. I kind of gave up on myself on quitting. But it's different now. I want to be here for her and for my daughter.
When I stopped showing up, Jim showed up at my door. He took me to the hospital in town to get me help. That's the day Jim saved my life.
Everyone has a role to play in preventing suicide. Know the signs and don't be afraid to speak up. If someone you know is in crisis or emotional distress, the only wrong thing to say is nothing at all. Call 800-273-TALK or text MT to 741-741.
Every generation produces heroes, men and women who step forward to defend our country in time of need, no matter the personal cost to themselves. And though we can never fully repay them, we can make sure they have access to low-cost, long-term care when they need it. That's what Montana's Veterans Homes are all about. If you've got a hero in need in your family, call us. We can help.
Hello everyone and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and as I said at the top, we're going to be talking about stages of dementia today and effective communication for those stages. We have a wonderful guest with us, Whitney Thompson, with the Alzheimer's Association of Montana. Whitney, welcome.
It's really nice to see you, Kimmy. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And you know, you're one of the best to talk to about this because, you know, I think one of the things that's so frightening to lay people like myself about dementia is that unease with the communication that may come down the pike as a person, you know, grows with their dementia. Can we start to talk about that a little bit? What kinds of communication strategies are important for, especially in those first few years or months of dementia?
Yeah, thank you, Kimmy. And I think it's always great to start too in clarifying the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia before we jump in as well. I know people have a lot of questions about that. So just real quickly before I give some highlights about communication tips in those early stages, dementia is actually a general term. It's a general set of symptoms. It's not a disease in itself. There are many different conditions that cause dementia, and Alzheimer's disease is the number one condition to cause dementia symptoms. But if you look at dementia as more of an umbrella term, and Alzheimer's falling underneath of that, you'll also see that there is vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia. So those are all different causes of dementia. But regardless of what type of dementia someone has, in those early stages, people will have many different warning signs, and one of them is communication changes, like you said, Kimmy, and those can be in the very early stages. You might not actually notice any communication changes in your loved one, but as things progress, you might see them having a hard time coming up with the words they want to use, or maybe withdrawing from conversation, taking longer to speak and respond. And why that occurs is because they're trying to comprehend what we're saying and articulate back what they want to say. And with dementia, if you have damage in your brain, it can be harder for the internal communication of your brain to connect all the dots. A couple other things you might see in the early stages are people having a hard time with decision making, and then perhaps even responding more with emotion. So showing a little bit more frustration or anger because they're coping with what they're noticing in themselves as well.
So what can a family member or a friend do to ease some of that in those early stages? If they do start to notice some things, and I would imagine that the frustration piece that you just spoke about would be very difficult for a person trying to get the words out but not able to.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And trying to be really straightforward in what you're communicating, try not to get too complicated, but of course, keeping that dignity for that person too. Giving a little extra time. It might even seem uncomfortable too, but you might need to give that extra 5-7 seconds of silence while they're really trying to come up with what they want to say back. Making sure we include them in the conversation. We see too often, perhaps in doctor's visits, when someone is living with dementia, we're not talking directly to that person anymore. We talk over and around them, but they, again, deserve that dignity of the direct conversation. And then, too, for many people, asking them directly what they prefer. So if you see that they're having a hard time coming up with the words they want to use, maybe asking them directly do you want me to help you jump in with what word I think you're trying to think of, or are you more comfortable if I give you more time? So those are just some general tips in the very early stages of the disease.
So that would be a part of planning in those first stages that a family or a friend might want to do, because you're right. We want to make sure we respect that individual and keep them a part of whatever conversation is going on. Isn't it important to plan, though?
You are right on again there. Really having those open conversations, if possible, in the beginning and starting to plan, and so that individual with dementia can be fully in charge of that decision-making process and thinking about what they want for their future. And it also equips families with the possibility to educate themselves, and for that individual with those early signs to educate themselves as well.
Yeah. What sort of resources in that initial stage? What sort of resources are available in Montana?
Yeah, so often we find that the earlier we can wrap our arms around families in these early stages, the better the outcomes. When you can get that network of support built around you, it's so very important. So we do have many early stage programs going on across the state, and during the pandemic, we've been able to adapt to that virtual delivery of those early stage programs. So that would be offered when it's normally just hosted in one community, is available across the state too. So it's actually called Connections at the Art Museum with the Yellowstone Art Museum, where once a month, we look at art together and then we create art together. And that's for people with those early symptoms and their families and friends. And it's really all about connection, connecting with each other and limiting that isolation that people can feel. Right. As well as our 24/7 helpline. Many times people think that directly that's for caregivers, maybe a little bit more into the disease, but it is too for individuals that are noticing changes in themselves as well.
And that hotline has been important for many years. We're really glad to have it. Stay with us, folks. We're right back.
I was diagnosed with diabetes in 1992, and I went into denial. It made me angry. I was a professional chef, and I didn't want to change my eating style. It took me a long time to get serious about managing my health. My perspective changed from resentment to one of loving my body, the container for my spirit. Getting help from my diabetes educator supported my goals of improved self-care. I want to feel good and have a great life. My diabetes educator helps me do this.
Good care is your right. In Montana, there's over 11,000 beds in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. If you or a family member needs assistance or help in obtaining information about care issues and placement options, call 1-800-332-2272. If you or a family member need information about Montana's long-term care resident rights, or if you need help solving a problem or a complaint about a nursing home or an assisted living facility, call us at 800-332-2272.
If you give or receive care, you already know that it can cause stress on caregiver and receiver alike. The good news is, if you have limited resources, help is available. The Montana Lifespan Respite Program may be able to help you pay for care while you take a break. Even better news is how easy it is to apply. You can get an application online or have one sent to you. We'll get back to you within 5 working days. Respite for caregivers. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. It's okay to get it.
If the Aging Network in Montana was a restaurant, the sign out front would say, over 50 million meals served over the last 30 years. Since adequate nutrition is critical to health and quality of life, nutrition services are an important factor in keeping older Montanans healthy, independent, and living in their community and home. To find out more about senior nutrition programs in your area, call 1-800-551-3191.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Whitney Thompson today talking about communication strategies and resources and supports for folks who are starting into dementia. Whitney, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Before we move off resources though, I just want to talk really quickly about the grant process that you're working on. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that is a huge resource for people in our state.
Definitely. I would be remiss if I didn't tell how thankful we are to be partnered with the Montana Alzheimer's and Dementia State Work Group, DPHHS Office on Aging, and the Montana Area Agencies on Aging. We're all actually part of an administration for community living grant that is for statewide infrastructure to really increase our reach of care and support. So there's a lot of great partners coming together to listen to all of our caregivers across the state and really provide what they need for resources.
Yep, awesome. And it's been going for a couple of years now, and we've just seen some really great work come out of that grant. So happy that you mentioned that. So let's move on to the middle stages that we're talking about today. And let me just say thanks for clarifying dementia versus Alzheimer's, because you're right, it is very confusing to know which term to use correctly. But now we're talking about communication strategies for folks in those mid stages. Can we talk about that a bit?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah. So again, if we look at those changes that take place in the middle stage, you'll really probably notice any changes that you saw in those early stages become more pronounced. So people using maybe more familiar words or describing what they're talking about. So something like a remote, saying that thing with the buttons for the TV, instead of being able to say remote and really articulate what they want to say. You might also see them maybe piecing together words in a little bit different order than they normally would as well, or perhaps being in a conversation and you're going back and forth just fine, and then at some point completely losing train of thought too. A few other items, maybe people that have always really enjoyed reading, having a hard time keeping track in a book or keeping track of a TV show, or maybe being able to articulate their words in an email or in a card to a grandchild as well. So those are some symptoms that can show up in these middle stages.
And I'm assuming that we talked about planning in those initial stages. Is planning just a thing that you continue to do and revisit over and over again through all the stages? To some extent, I guess.
100% planning, and I would say adapting. Dementia, Alzheimer's, and all other types of dementia really teach us how important it is to be able to adapt to what's going on in the environment and with the progression of the disease. And that also brings up to me that these are general symptoms, but they can progress so differently from one person to the next too. So again, adapting and getting more tools in your toolbox so you have some choices in how to connect with your loved one.
And I think one really important thing that I've noticed from speaking with you before is meeting that person in their reality. Would that be true?
Yes, it's so important to validate what they're saying and where they're coming from too. So often we can really struggle, for example, wanting to pull them back to our reality and what we look at as facts. But instead, we need to look at the emotion behind what they are saying and try to redirect the conversation after that. So if someone is living with dementia, is saying that my daughter never calls, I never hear from her, and really we know that daughter called earlier in the day, it doesn't do any good to say your daughter called earlier in the day. That's not what they remembered. But you also don't want to throw the daughter under the bus and say something that's not true either. Instead, what you do is you look at what is the emotion that person is feeling. The emotion they're feeling is they miss their daughter. They want to be talking to their daughter. So that's what you acknowledge. You say, I'm sure you miss your daughter. I'm so sorry. And then redirect and celebrate that you get to be there talking to them today too, and how thankful you are for that. So really, it's more about emotion over fact when it comes to dementia, really acknowledging those emotions that somebody is having.
What a great concept, Whitney. That just makes me feel really good to think about. And I think the other thing is patience. We may, as human beings, I think about all the times that I try to speak for my spouse when he can't get the word out or something. And it really does take some patience and understanding and care for that person to let them do what they want, correct?
Yeah, and you're kind of alluding there to nonverbal communication too. Many times when we think of communication, we think about the words that we're saying, but so much of it is our nonverbal communication. So when we're overwhelmed and we're frustrated and we're trying to hurry things along, they're picking up on that, just like any of us would pick up on that frustration. And that points to trying to find ways to support yourself as a caregiver and finding that network of support as well. And sometimes even you might just need to leave the room and come back in if it's safe. And something as simple as just changing up the environment like that too can help de-escalate the situation as well. Super.
Folks, you don't have to do this alone. If there's someone in your family or your friends that is dealing with dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, whatever it is, there's help. You can reach out. You can call the 1-800 number. That's the 24/7 hotline. You can go online, but you don't need to do it yourself. Reach out and stay with us. We have some more information that you're not going to want to miss.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
In 20 years at an electric utility, I've seen the hardships many of our neighbors face with high winter heating bills.
Ross Holter, Flathead Electric Co-op.
That's why I donate to Energy Share of Montana. I just hate the thought of senior citizens, and young kids especially, being cold in the winter. Donate to Energy Share. Help your neighbor stay warm.
To donate, call 888-779-7589 or go to EnergyShareMT.com. Energy Share. You can help your neighbors stay warm.
This is Sergeant Jones. Please respond. I was separated from my squad. Requesting backup. Anyone? Please respond. I'm all alone here.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare Summary Notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're talking about communication strategies through dementia today, and our wonderful guest is Whitney Thompson with the Alzheimer's Association of Montana. Whitney, welcome back. So good to have you.
Thank you.
So, let's talk about maybe the more advanced stages of the dementias. As a person, you've been dealing with this for a while, you're maybe a year or so into it, although that's different for everybody, isn't it?
It is, yes. On average, we know that after diagnosis, the life expectancy is usually 6 to 8 years, but that is such a general statement, and the way that it progresses can be very different from one person to the next. And I know people really long for clear answers of this is exactly what I can expect, and this is exactly the amount of time I can expect for this, but it just varies so much from one person to the next. And it also, too, is about how many resources you can connect to, and if you can get the support that you need too, that can help you as a caregiver and maybe help with some behaviors that can occur. I do know another thing that happens a lot, I know for myself and for others, that we want to be able to do something. We want to be able to fix this and do something about it. And unfortunately, with where we're at with our understanding of Alzheimer's and other types of dementia, that do something is about being there for the individual with dementia, sticking by their side, being there to connect with them, and really trying to keep them the quality of life up and your quality of life up as well.
Yeah. Well, and before we talk about the sort of late stages and what you should be looking for, let's just again talk about the hotline, because that's a very important resource. You want to tell us about that for a minute?
Yeah, again, that 24/7 helpline is there for anybody. It's free and available any day, any time of day as well, whether it's a holiday, a weekend, and call for any reason, really. Whether it is the middle of the night and you feel alone in this, give them a call. Or maybe it's, I'm thinking that maybe assisted living is the next step. What should I do? Give them the call, and they can help you, guide you through things that maybe you can be thinking about as well. Or legal and financial situations, communication techniques, they're there for you.
Great. So, okay, we're talking about some of the final stages now. What kinds of communication issues might a person see that has maybe a loved one with dementia in the late stages?
Yeah, in the very late stages, you might see very limited verbal communication, but there still is nonverbal communication happening there, and we need to think about ways to connect. And this is a time to really be attentive to that nonverbal communication, being attentive to pain management and comfort. And then I would also like to note, and this is important for any stage of the disease, is a lot of times people get labeled with behaviors that they wander, or they get aggressive or frustrated, or all these different things. But we really need to look at those behaviors as being communication. They are that person, they are communicating something to us. They are coping with what is going on around them. So some things that they might be communicating is that they are bored and they're looking for value, or something in their environment. Maybe it's too busy or there's a lot of noise. Perhaps there's an infection, like a urinary tract infection. That can happen too. So there's a lot of different things, dehydration. But to note that as this progresses, it usually progresses gradually. So if you see drastic changes in someone living with dementia, that's a good sign that there might be another underlying health condition going on as well that we need to pay attention to.
Oh, that's good to know. And I appreciate that you said that the behaviors might really be communication attempts. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and that makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, well, I just think about it for any of us. If we aren't able to articulate with our words what we want to be saying, they're going to come out in a different way. And if we're frustrated, that can come out in our body language and the way we express ourselves too. So it's really kind of what any of us might do.
So, Whitney, what kinds of resources at this stage are available to folks?
Yes, so in this virtual world, we have been able to adapt the programs that we offer in person. And so today we've talked about communication techniques, but there's so much more to cover in just this one subject. So we do offer our education virtually that you can sign up through the 24/7 helpline, that we really can get more in depth about topics like communication, 10 warning signs, those behavioral changes that we see as well.
Wow. I'm so thrilled to have you here, Whitney, because I guess as I start to think about the final stages, I think about the family and the friends that are left. What do they do? Once they get to the end of this battle or challenge or whatever, what do they do? Are they reaching out, looking for help afterwards and support?
We sure want them to, and at every stage, like we started off too, Kimmy, in the very early to even if someone we love has passed away, we are here for you, and there are so many resources as well, and ways to connect and ease some of the stress on you as well, and all of our caregivers. And in these late stages, some tips that help are thinking about engaging with the 5 senses and using music as a way to more celebrate as well. There's some great research out there about that too. So there's lots of different techniques in education that can maybe help make things a little bit better.
That sounds great. Whitney, thank you so much for being with us today. Folks, you don't have to do this alone. Call the hotline, reach out online. You are not alone. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kimmy Everman. Thanks for being with us.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.